Well, today we're starting a new project, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I start with some underlayment or some kind of backer board, substrate, whatever you want to call it. I like to use 1/4" MDF as the base for my dioramas. It gives me something later on that I can attach things to if I need to, but primarily what it does for me is it gives some rigidity to this pink foam that I'm going to glue it to. Now, this pink foam is specific in that it's supposed to be rigid. I mean, it's built to stay rigid. But when you start adding glues and surfaces and textures and all these things to it, what can happen is that stuff dries, and if I don't have anything on the bottom, this is thick enough, it wouldn't hurt it. But, you know, if I start getting this thin, because I'm going to carve it out, then what can happen is that stuff can shrink and kind of bow the bottom of your diorama. So by placing a nice piece of 1/4" MDF, which is typically dead flat, unless it's been in weather and it's warped, which I've had. But when you buy it from the store, it should be dead flat. And then I can glue it to the bottom of my pink foam. Then I cut the pink foam out so it's this shape, and then I flip it over, and then I start doing my work on it. It's just a really nice way to start your diorama. And as I said before, it gives you something to attach stuff to. You know, I like to put like a border and stuff on my dioramas and make it nice. Well, I can attach stuff to this. Even though it's very thin, it gives me an attach point where I can either glue or staple or nail or screw even, you know, something to the side to make it a little nicer when it's done. So that's first thing. I'm going to use foam tack glue. I really like this stuff. It's not cheap, but it works really good. You put it on both surfaces, kind of like you would do like a rubber glue, where you put on a rubber glue and then you let it kind of tack up or dry a little bit, and then you join the two pieces. Well, it's the same thing with this foam tack glue. The issue is this. When I put glue on this, there's enough porousness and air will flow through this so that your glue will dry, but not this. This stuff is impermeable, meaning that it's not going to allow airflow. So if I don't have enough airflow to this glue, if I like glues this to something, that glue can just stay wet like it's in a container. So by allowing it to partially dry, it goes on white in color, just like any other PVA glue. And then you go ahead and let it get clear. And once it's clear, you join the two pieces. Man, it sticks great. It works well. And I got no other place to look for the type of glue. If you do like some people I've seen where they'll do like a polyurethane glue, like Gorilla Glue, the problem with that is it swells up, and it can literally lift this, you know, and shift it and stuff like that. So I've done it. I don't do it anymore. The Gorilla Glue is not a great choice. I go with foam tack glue. If you've got another suggestion, throw it in there. I'd love to see it. But for me, this works great, and I'm happy with it. So that's what we're doing next. Okay, so not a lot of preparation. I just got me a paper towel here to wipe my fingers because I use my fingers to spread this glue around. You don't have to. You can use a glue spreader. That's perfectly fine, or a paintbrush, or whatever you want to use. I'm just going to use my fingers, and I think that works fine. I'm going to get some glue out here eventually. It is kind of froze up. Let's see. Yeah, see, I got to clean that thing. We're just going to get some out of here. That'll be just fine. Now, it's just like regular PVA glues, except it's formulated for, you know, this. So this is just like regular PVA glue. It's formulated just like any other PVA glue. Except that it stays tacky, you know, when it dries. So now, you see, I've got this all over here. I want it on the other side, too. So I'm just going to do this. That'll give me my footprint. Now I can go back in and add a little bit more glue because I don't want any gaps or anything like that. But that'll just give me my footprint so I can add a little bit more glue to this and get this up here as well. Okay, so I've got this now attached to that. So all I did was, after I spread the glue on the bottom, I'll set this over here. When I spread the glue on the bottom piece and then on the foam, then I just placed that on there, I weighted it down, and there you go. It's great. And again, that is the foam tack glue, or yeah, foam tack. So now I need to carve it. And what we're doing is we're going to have rock here, and we're coming through a cut, and how to do that terrain. So basically what I did was I just took this and I glued it to the board. And again, I think that's going to be real important if you're doing like just 1 inch thick foam. Now 2 inch thick, I know you got the 2 inch thick there, so that's going to be fine too. But on that large of a board, 36 inches or 40 inches, because you want it a little bit longer than your chuck wagon and the team, you know. So you probably want to go something like 40 inches or something with your board.
Yes.
And you want to glue that just like I've done to this. I would suggest, the reason we're doing this is to keep it from warping, and it also gives you a stable base so you can carry the whole thing, you know, in transportation. And it also gives you something to adhere, maybe some trim to make it look a little nicer at the end. So that's what I've done here. And when we get to that point on this, we will attach some trim to this around it so it looks nice, you know, and we'll cover these edges. But I just want to make that point that we do need to glue it to a piece of board, or else it'll be difficult to work with.
Gotcha, Roger, and I'm understanding all of that. In fact, I'm on your page. The one that I've got finished, or whatever, if there is such thing, but the one that I have on the base,
Yep.
that you looked at, that you said, I want to put I think I need like about a 1/4 inch piece of foam, and then that board, you know, glued to the foam, and then the foam, I mean the base glued to the foam, and making a base out of that.
Yeah, and that could work. So it's basically, let's go back to the picture here. So all I'm trying to do here, so everything here, that's going to become our terrain and stuff, and we'll even, you know, do something with these sides here. And yeah, I think one of the things is, with this kind of terrain, I think the 1 inch foam maybe isn't going to be enough to get that elevation that we want, you know?
No, I'm with you on there.
Yeah.
I just meant on that other piece, on that piece that I've got finished, but what I'm trying to do is finish off something, and that you talked to me about that base, and you said that, you know, the one that I already have that's got the foliage and
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is on the bottom of it. Glue that piece on a piece of foam, like a 1/4 inch piece, half piece, whatever, and then glue that onto a board like.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, and that'll work great. And you know, when I'm not trying to sell some glue, but I sure do like that the foam glue, the foam tack glue from Woodland Scenics, and I think you have some, and that's definitely what I'd use, because when we start, and I do talk about this in the video that I did, and I think we talked about this. You have some. Oops, let me change the picture. You've got some of this, I think. And so that's what I used, and it works wonderfully. And it's the stuff where you're going to put it on both surfaces, the foam and the wood, put it on there, let it get clear, you know, so it's partially dry, then put them together. And that's the same process that I used on this foam board. And yeah, I think you're right. This the same process when you're going foam to foam. When you're taking your foam piece and gluing it onto another piece of foam. It's real important to use something like this glue, so that, because what can happen with this glue is, if you're doing two pieces of plastic together and you use just like a regular PVA glue, the glue will dry, like on the open ends wherever the glue is, you know, so it'll dry. But the stuff in the middle, because it creates such a good seal. It's like being in the bottle. It'll never dry because it doesn't get enough air to it. Yeah, so that's why it's important to use this kind of a glue, because you pre-dry it, and once it's dry, it's really super tacky, and then you put it together, it doesn't have to dry anymore, and it has a great hold. So that's why I use that.
Gotcha. One more thing. Stay on that subject.
Yes, sir.
This is just for backup, and we'll go back to it. This will probably get played out in the end of what we're doing anyway. But so far as attachment, like the attachment of that wagon,
Yep.
To that base, like, and obviously I could epoxy it, but I'm thinking like I want to drive pins down in the wheel.
Yeah, I've done that, and I like that approach. It's not too hard to drill into your wheels. Obviously, you don't have to go too far. I would go into the wheels first, get that pin, and that pin honestly doesn't have to be too long, maybe I'd say half an inch is long, well long enough,
Okay, Bill. While you're there, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, keep on.
You're good.
Okay, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm saying about the foam. So that spike would go to the foam, or would I need to go all the way to the board?
I think the foam, but you kind of have to prepare the foam too. So you remember when we're doing the foam, we're only putting kind of a light coating of the Mod Podge on top, or whatever kind of stuff we're having on top. So below that little skin, it's just that foam, and that may not be enough to hold it. So what I would suggest doing is figuring out where you want, the wheels, where they're going to land, okay? And let me ask you this. How thick is the foam that we're putting it in at this point?
Well, actually, I haven't done anything.
No worries. No worries.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, Bill. Other than that base, I haven't put any foam or anything. I was waiting to talk to you about it.
Perfect. So one idea is to go ahead and drill into the foam itself all the way to the base, and put a piece of dowel. So if I can find a cutoff piece, give me just a second, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I want to say this is like 3/16 or something. Yeah, so this is a 3/16 inch piece of dowel, not very big, so it's going to leave a very, very small footprint. Most likely your wheel is about this wide, or maybe even a little wider. And so the nice thing is what I would do is I would take, and this is something we can show in the video. We'll do this during the build, because this will be a good one. And so what you do is you just cut off however deep your foam is, and then we'll drill down into the foam, just a regular drill bit, and then we'll secure this in there. We'll make it look like the rest of the ground and all that kind of stuff. Then we can drill a small hole into the top of that little piece of dowel, and that's going to fit your wheel pin.
Gotcha.
And I think that'll be a really super secure way, and it won't come off, even if it's moving or something like that.
Right.
In transportation, that's what I find most of the damage comes from anything that I do.
Exactly.
And it's not even the loading and unloading of the packing and unpacking. It's the vibration as you're driving.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think if we're able to stabilize it as it's being mounted to the base, I think that'll work good. So I'm gonna make sure that we do that exact process in this project.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll figure out exactly where it'll be later in the process, but we'll do that exact process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can do the same thing with the horse's hooves, all that. I can, I plant them.
Yeah. And the nice thing is you're probably going to have only 2 hooves per horse, I would imagine, if they're at a walk or a canter. So yeah, so you only have to do 2 of those, maybe even 1. It depends on how stable it feels, because basically you're not trying to secure every single thing. You're trying to secure the whole thing, because it's the whole thing that shifts. So yeah, once we get to that point, we'll use this technique, and we'll get everything secured in there.
This is the reason I love this test teaching lesson, Bill. Right there. I could stop you. We could back up to that point, and I do know that we're going to use it, but it does put it in our heads, and I can keep the thought. And you're able to go back. You know what I'm saying? Back.
Yeah. Yeah.
To it,
So I think that's going to work out great. Yeah, I think that's a real nice way of doing it. So, anyway,
I won't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're totally fine. So let's look at this again. So basically, after gluing this on here, then I did just some real simple layout lines, and I just drew there and here, and I don't always want it to be the same width.
I noticed that. Yes.
Yeah. If it's the same width all the time, it's going to look too contrived. It should vary a little bit, and that variation, I think, will do a little bit more with as we start carving these.
Okay.
These sides. Now, for the sides, the issue I have with the sides is, if you look very closely at that picture, and I'm going to bring it up here because I can show you the picture right here, and I'm going to swap the camera. So there's our picture. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? So I did a screenshot, and this is that screenshot. And remember the whole thing about trying to build a story behind all this? So what it looks like to me is, if you look at the large rocks that are on the right side of the guys, driving the wagon, those big rocks there, I think, came from blasting. So there's rock on the left and the right, because in the foreground you can see on the right hand side of this picture there's a big rock right there too.
Yeah.
So to me it looks like this is their trail, and they blasted through a vein of rock. So the rock was coming like this. They needed that road to go through there, and they blasted through the rock. So you've got rock here and rock here, and that's where all that debris is from blasting through that rock vein.
That's from a road grader, but yeah, exactly.
Well, it's
exactly what you're saying.
yeah. And so to originally get through that rock, because I'm thinking that rock was like a standing vein of rock, and then they blasted through it, and then they're graded and improving the road over the years. But that original, so that's kind of the look I'm going to go for. The rock is there on both sides of the road, and then there's a little bit of debris on the side, and then that's it. The other thing is when you're blasting rock, lots of times you're drilling into it. I don't know if you've seen a lot of quarries and stuff like that. And so you'll see these drill holes into the rock. I don't know if you want to go that far. We could, or we don't need to, but that's just one of the options to demonstrate that it was blown. So that's what I'm planning on doing. So the next part, and let's go back to our visual here. So the next part is figuring out how I'm going to have a large rock here and a large rock face here. You know, building those on this. And there's a couple of ways I can do it. I can leave these completely flat and then glue to it and then carve it. You know, just glue other foam to it and carve it. The problem is, you know, when you go through glue and you're trying to carve it, it can leave a seam and it doesn't look so good. So the second way I'm thinking about doing, I think this is the way that I'm probably going to do it, is I'll leave these flat for now, and then I'll carve a piece of stone that comes up. It's flat on the bottom. It comes up. It will go here, but I'll carve it outside of this first and then apply it to it. And the reason I mention that is the carving part is when I'm carving this, I'm carving everything together. And so it's going to have this kind of a homogeneous look to it. You know, I can separate the rock, but there's more of a look to it. If I do it separate, I think it might be easier to carve the rock, because they're looking at this rock, and let's go back to our picture. This rock, though it's rough, it's not as rough as the stone that we just did. So it's not going to have as much texturing. There's a lot of nice flat surfaces on this rock. If you look in the background.
Beautiful flats.
Yeah. So it's still rough, but it's more like it's fractured rock. So it's these big cracks that went all the way through the rock when it was blasted and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if it was blasted or not. I'm going with that story though. And so, yeah, it just kind of seems, you know, you got a bunch of folks trying to get through this, like, hey, throw me some of that dynamite, you know. So,
And they do.
yeah,
Bad with dynamite.
yeah. So that's what I'm going to concentrate on. So I think I'm going to carve those separately and then apply them. I'm just, you know, every time I go into a diorama, there's that part of just, how am I going to do it? You know, and you got to plan on that. Sometimes I'll dive into something and I'll just go headlong into it, you know. Sometimes I'll get to a point and I'll just stop and I'll just think about it. Because, and I think that's important to do. You might have this great idea, and if you just go headlong into it and then you don't start thinking about the individual things that you're doing, you might roll over something you might not want to, you know. Just doing, yeah, too fast down the road. So I stopped last night and I said, that's what I want to figure out next. Because if I have these two rocks here on this, you know, and much more than rock, obviously, where am I going to have the plants? Where am I going to have it? Now, mine is just a small example for the class, but because I want to show you this whole thing, I've got to include plants and everything. So that's what I'm figuring out now. I think most of our plants and stuff like that are going to be here, because what I imagine is the rock kind of going like this. Like that. So I'll have, yeah, plant life here, maybe a little bit here, a little bit here, and then maybe even some in front of the rock along the trail, you know, but not a hell of a lot. And then the other thing I did is I went out and I found this in the yard. It's just a real nice looking hunk of wood. It's an old root that's been torn apart, but it looks really nicely weathered. And so parts of this I want to work into it because I think it's going to look real nice. So we'll talk about that too. I have not microwaved this yet. I have not roasted it. I've not done anything to it. I took my pressure washer and blew out all the dirt and everything that I could get out of it, and that kind of raised up some of the wood and splintered it. And it just looks beautiful. I'm just really happy with it.
It does look beautiful.
Yeah. So we're going to incorporate this into it in some fashion. Probably not the whole thing because it's so big, but parts of it will make it in there. And go ahead.
Yes, please. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, now then, I'm building a crow's nest on top of my wall.
Mm-hmm.
And in the corner there, and those sticks. I can't get it in my mind. I'm on phone, so I feel cocky. I can't really eat it until it gets. But I soaked it. Here's what I did. I soaked it in alcohol for 2 days, just alcohol, and then I took it out and I put it in the freezer. And I froze it for 2 days. So now I'm at the point of I don't know if I want to do more or just try to seal that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Here's what I do. Number one, the alcohol. That's not a bad idea. I would think about glycerin. The alcohol adds a flammable element to it, and it's going to be hard to get all that alcohol out of the stick. Some of it's going to stay in there. So I wouldn't put it in the microwave, but I do think you could roast it in the oven at 200 degrees.
200, okay.
200. And that's not that hot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so 200 degrees, couple hours, and what that'll do is that...
Oh, moving to Texas. I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
No, you're all right. And that should do it. And what we want to do is we want to try to leach out any moisture, any of that alcohol in there, all that kind of stuff, and just let it do its thing. And I think after that, let it completely cool. Now here's something that I just thought of that I haven't tried yet. If I took something right out of the oven at 200 degrees and took that and then put it in glycerin.
Glycerin, what is that?
So glycerin, I got a bottle of it. Let me show you. It's not hard to find. Mine I get it was like at Walgreens or something it's just like this, and it's a little bit thick, and they use it for moisturizing and creams and lotions, all kinds of stuff. But what glycerin does is it has a specific property that it permeates stuff very, very quickly. It will go through your skin. If I put a little glycerin on my skin and leave it there, eventually it'll just dissipate into my skin. Okay? So the glycerin does the same thing with your sticks. It gets into the stick. Well,
Does it then dissipate out?
Well, no, but the good thing is it replaces the water that's in the stick.
Okay.
Yeah. And the positive aspect of that is the glycerin won't spoil. It won't allow it to rot. It'll preserve it.
Good.
So now here's what I've not thought of and I was just thinking about. If I take my stick that's been in the oven at 200 degrees, I take it out, what it's doing is, pardon? I would say for, I don't know, a couple hours. I haven't tried this, but I would say a couple hours because you want to make sure that heat is all the way through the stick, And what that's going to do is it's going to evaporate any moisture that's in it.
Right.
The alcohol worries me a little bit.
Okay, well, I don't need to use it.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking out loud. It does worry me a little bit. I think maybe if you let it sit out before you put it in the oven then do it. I think you'd be okay because alcohol wants to evaporate. That's its natural action.
Yes.
But back to our stick coming out of the oven at 200 degrees. If I took that and stuck it in glycerin at 200 degrees and let it cool, that would help draw that glycerin into it. Because you know what happens when something cools, it starts to shrink and it draws stuff in. Just like when you cook meat on the barbecue, it draws the juices in as it cools. So you know. So that's an idea. I haven't tried that, but that might work very nicely.
Yeah.
And then when it's cool, then take it out of the glycerin and then just let it sit. Now you could rinse it off with water, that's totally fine. But the glycerin won't leave any kind of residue because it'll go into the wood. So it's not going to make it shiny. And by doing that, you're basically replacing the moisture that was in the wood or any latent moisture that's in there with the glycerin, which won't spoil and won't allow it to rot.
Got it.
Then you can still seal it after it's completely dry and cool and stuff. And I'd let it sit for a couple of days, you know.
Didn't you do that, Bill? You know what? Excuse me, please. You're like your. Where do I start? Never mind. But do you seal those projects like
Yeah, and not always the entire thing, you know.
Yeah.
I'll typically do the individual element, you know. I'll typically seal that. Yeah. And I think it's a good idea. And I do it either while I'm building or prior, you know, when I'm prepping that little component or something like that. Yeah. And I always do the sealing with my Mod Podge, the matte Mod Podge, and the water. When I'm sealing, I don't use the thick Mod Podge because it can build up a little bit of a layer, you know, and I don't want to build up any kind of a layer. I just want that protective coating on it. That's really all I'm looking for. So
that's what I was thinking about, but obviously not wood as in lacquers, but
yeah,
like coats, ball coats, acrylic coats. You know what I'm saying? You know, something that, or perhaps it'd be better to seal it with enamel, huh? Probably would.
Well, here's the thing. I like using the water-based stuff.
Me too.
And
I almost have to.
Yeah, and I want to kind of stay away from anything I would spray. I want to try to get something on there like the glue that I can paint on, and then it'll wick its way into all the cracks. When you, and meaning that there's a lot more on there too. When I spray stuff, it's great. It gets a coating, but that doesn't get into all those little cracks and crevices. Yeah.
I actually use it as shading.
Yeah.
You know, with an air gun, I'll shade out with it.
Yeah.
I'm full.
Yeah. So I would paint it on and really douse it in there and get it on there. And then, you know, get rid of all the excess, but let that dry and that'll seal it real nice. So when I haven't done that full process on camera, I don't know if I could do that this week, but I think during this part of our class, we can do that. I can run that for you, that test, and see how it works. And I can probably do it on this one, where I take this one, stick it in the oven, and then drop it in some glycerin, just like we talked about, and see how that process works. So I'll do that with this, and that'll be a fun experiment, and also get it on film. You know, that'd be real nice.
That'd be excellent.
Yeah. So I guess the next part is I think what we want to do is get this line kind of going that way. Kind of get this rock formation angled in such a way it looks like it's continuous. So oops. There we go. I just need a general kind of alignment to help how these are gonna go. I need to sharpen that. Okay, so what I want from our picture is I'm gonna try to get like lines of rock, like stratus lines and stuff like that, because this rock it almost looks like it's built up of many rocks, but it's a single rock because it's all so fractured. So I'm gonna try to lay levels that'll make it look first like it's a singular structure, like it's this vein of rock. Then I'll start busting it down into different layers and levels, or else it'll look like it's constructed, and that's obviously not what I want. So that's what this red line is just to kind of make sure that everything's going in the same direction to show that we're kind of coming through it. I'm going to slope these off, quite a bit in making this look like it's busted up, but some of it's very angular. So that's the stuff I'm really worried about, having it look too, constructed, I guess. I don't want it to. So one of the things I'm going to do is there's this general face, but I'm going to back off this by cutting in here, trying to kind of keep it level. It doesn't have to be. And then I'll kind of come down again and make it a little bit of a step. So that'll be a fracture point. And then I'm going to take that fracture point and I'm going to kind of bring it around to have it continue. It doesn't have to be level, but it needs to continue. So hopefully that'll look good. Okay. Same thing here. This is like a natural thing in the foam. It's like a break point, so you can snap these foam boards. So I'm going to kind of work with that. I don't want to leave any kind of straight lines in here, so I'm going to have to kind of do something to break that up. So I'll have to make it like a crack, or I don't know. But let's see, same thing here. But I'm going to do this one kind of twice. This one will be pretty deep. And this one, it doesn't have to be the same plane, just the same general slope. I don't like the fact that everything's kind of like a bow of a ship. I don't want that, so same deal here. Okay. Need to change some things up top here. It's too much, I think. I want to bring some of this down. Okay. Now, all these pieces I'm cutting off, I'm keeping. I'm not going to necessarily keep them the same size, but I am going to cut them down and make them into other rocks that I'm going to need to tumble later. And what I do is I place them in a container, and then I try to make them, you know, look like a bunch of busted up rock. Okay, this has to come down, and I have to kind of... There we go. And this general shaping kind of stuff, this will be impacted later on when I texture and put some surfacing on this. But right now we're just trying to get it to look like, you know, rock. I need some lines doing this kind of stuff. Establishing this direction. Different intersecting lines. Okay. I can shape from here all the way around to there, but this, and this I want to leave because that's our infinity. You know, that's the black infinity that's going to be painted black. So I need to kind of slope this down to here, though. I don't want, you know, maybe I go some shear walls or something. Here, I think. I just don't want a smooth top. I think we need a crack going down here. Now, a lot of this stuff even will get busted off as I'm working with it. That's okay. That's when it starts, getting really rough, when I'm like throwing rocks and all kinds of stuff at it to try to give it texture. I will bust things off. That's okay. But we're not there yet. Okay, it's not looking too bad. Let's cut some of this stuff. Okay. Over here we need some, a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there now, and let's get some texture on there and see how we're looking. Okay. I'm going to start with my steel brushes. And I got to get my rocks. Okay. These are weathering rocks. They've got really super rough textures and stuff like that. Here's one for thin, going in these middles here. And I am going to tear this thing up. It is going to look pretty rough when I'm done, but I'm trying to make it look like a real rock surface with fissures and things that have fallen away and all kinds of stuff. All those cuts in here that didn't go anywhere, those will add a lot to it. This one's nice and rough too. I'm going to use some of that. And we'll come in with our okay, now this is the really stiff, harsh steel brush. And this thing comes in and just does a bang up job. And I'm really hammering on this thing too. I am not being nice. I am really trying to get some texture in there. Really get some faces on those rocks. Okay, now we go to the brass one. And then this is the last one. I like to run all three of them because they each have, these are like real curled over and stuff. It's almost soft. These, the same thing. But if I do all three of them, I get a really nice texture on the outside. I'm not done texturing. I still got a whole bunch of work to do. I'll even come back to these later on to get a little bit more texture here or there, you know, as I'm working on it. But I like to start with this. Okay, now I am going to get my pencil because now we have to define some stuff a little bit more. So, remember, there's a red line. You can barely see it there. There's a red line there, and then I've got a bunch of streaks going that way. Those are supposed to be fissures in the rock. Same thing here. I may even add some more, but I want to, you know, enhance those now with my pencil. And so I'm going to go in here, and just like we did with, you know, if we're doing regular rock, and this time if it kind of goes somewhere, you just let it, you know, because you're trying to get these long lines, to look like this is a rock formation, not just, you know, rocks that are stacked. And it's those long lines, those fissures that help, even though it's crossing over like a seam and stuff like that. That's what helps this look like a formation and not just a stack of rock or maybe something that was man-made that's been dilapidated. So I'm trying to follow those fissures. And the reason I'm doing them in this direction and not this direction, because I'm trying to, they're still in this. If you look real closely, there's one of those break lines. And what I mean by break lines, this foam, as you buy it, it's used for construction. And so it ever so many inches, I don't know if it's 10 or 12 or whatever, they've got this. This is embedded in this direction and from the other side, so that on the construction site, you can kind of do you see where the line is and you can pop it. And so you can make this fit between 2x4s, you know, in wall insulation. So I guess it's 16 inches. But the point is, as you're carving your foam, you don't necessarily want that to take over your design. So I did the very first thing I did. Remember that red line I put there? I wanted that to direct itself to show I have, you know, this continuous formation that the road cuts through. Because we're going to do the same thing that we're doing here to this and this over here. but I still want to hide that break line that we talked about, which is going that way. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job. You can't see now a straight line going this way. I'm taking all my lines going this way. Would it have been better to align that straight line? Sure, but I didn't. So this is just, maybe your foam, you don't have that piece or whatever. So it's not like, you have to start over or something like that. You can do it if you didn't do it the first time, like aligning it properly or make it a little bit easier on yourself. So anyway, I am going through and I'm hitting a lot of these, and I'm thinking, as I'm doing this, I'm not just blindly going at it. I'm thinking I want these to look like rocks. I want them to look like they are separating with these fissures, and I'm trying to look, to make each one stand out. If I come across something that needs more work, like I have to make another cut or something like that, or like this is a real sharp edge. Maybe I want to come in with my is that 100 grit? I think with my 100 grit and see, that's a little bit sharp of an edge. I mean, it's not that it's bad, but I just maybe want to take that down so it's a little bit more rounded, show a little bit more weathering. The fissure doesn't always have to go all the way through too. Cracks stop in lots of places. Now I need to start with my wood sculpting tools and my round sculpting tools to try to help define the individual rock and things like that. So, love this one. This one does a great job, and just like before, I'm kind of pushing stuff in. Now, right here, you can see what I did. I pushed this one, I pushed one right in beside it. That's when you're, trying to like take a whole area down. But typically, I try to do like this rock and then this rock, because if I do them right next to each other, I'm not really making any kind of shadow or difference in it. So, pick your one that you're going to work on like this. I'm just going to peel that off and then try to isolate it so these this indentations and this pressing in work that you're doing is effective. Again, the big thing that we're trying for is creating shadows. By creating these shadows, that's what's going to draw your eye. That is the detail, Everybody talks about lighting and getting the right light. Well, half of lighting is shadow. So make sure you spend just as much time on that, just to make your diorama or your element for your diorama look the best it can. Okay, I need some more. I've got to cut some face. Get that piece out of there. Opening up some stuff in here will also make a big difference. I'm looking for my, here we are. I was looking for my tweezers. I need to get that out of there. Wasn't doing anybody any good. I think the rest of this looks pretty darn good. Get this out of here. And out of there. What I'm doing here is there are just some little tiny pieces that don't quite look like rock. So I'm just trying to get those out of there. But once it's painted, there we go. And most of this stuff you won't worry about. Looks good. Okay. These pieces. We'll also be putting a little bit of dirt on here in the weathering process, just like we did with the stone wall, if you haven't seen that. So in the stone wall, that was one of the later processes. Now, we're gonna finish this one up and get it to just about the point to put on the dark brown. I use burnt umber and black, a mix. And then we'll stop, and then we'll do the other one, and it'll be kind of a review. We're going to go over exactly what I did and, you know, why I did it, but on a smaller piece. And two pieces. You know, that's going to be kind of hard, but it's going to be important to kind of follow that, number one, that first line that we did, the red line, because it extends to both pieces. And so we want to make sure we pick that up on these when we start working with them, because they're supposed to be the same rock formation, just separated for the road to go through. That looks great. Okay. I want to get this guy out of here. I don't want that in there. I want a bigger crack. And I want a deeper crack. So we'll do that. And then we'll do a little of that. And then we'll come in with this guy, the super crackinator. And there we go. So we've got a nice texture there. I think that looks good. Okay, we're going to stop on this one now, and we're going to go to the other piece, and we're going to see how we make that one look like this one. That's a big, ooh, I got to get these parts. Sorry, I did not get those. Let's get those. Okay, so here, see that, how that goes? That is going to give us a nice fissure in the front side of the rock. That looks pretty good. I don't like that corner. Some of these things, it's like, you know, you might have something like really, really sharp, but typically if I have something really sharp, I try to knock it down because of like age and weathering and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that side looks a lot better. I want to even come back with our wire brush and kind of pick up a little bit more of that rock surface look. That looks good. Okay, that's great. Now look at that. That goes right there. And there's our red line. So now we're taking that red line, get this turned in the right direction. We're going to take that red line and the kind of cuts that we make in that, how we trim stuff away. And it's not going to be as tall as this one. This is going to be the bigger one. But this one is going to have the same things. And that's tying the two together. So that's going to, you know, make them look like one contiguous piece of rock. And then we'll add this guy to it like that. So we have that kind of the same stair step kind of a look as over here. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to get a different angle, but I'm just doing the other side. So here's the one that I just finished up, and I think that's pretty good. So there's that. And then now we're going to do this side, and it's got to have that same direction. So there's the red line on top of there that continues there. And I think that's the key to making them look like it's a continuous rock. So pardon me, I think for this side, I want to kind of make it higher. So this slope is going to be much more steep on this and then continuing on this. But I'm going to start here. So This is a great knife. I don't know. This is Excel, so it's not X-Acto, but it's an Excel blade. But I think it's like for, I don't know what it's for, carpet or something like that, but it's super long and it's great. So I really like using that for, you know, when I'm doing big stuff like this, I'm kind of blocking it in. I don't want to just cut it down. I'm gonna do it in steps, just like I did this. This one, I will go all the way down because then I can come in here and then like that. And then over here, I need to get to the bottom, so I do have to kind of get all the way down there. But I try to do it at different angles. Okay, so I know where I need to go. So I need to get this out of the way because that was like, I could not cut that anymore. But let's see now. So let's take this. Okay, I think that's not too bad. I'm not too worried about this side because I've got something that's going to go on that side, so that'll be fine there. But this side has to be carved. So I need to keep going with this. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now, before I lose my red line, I'm going to start doing my fracture lines. So remember, I got to kind of go in this way. They don't have to be exactly that, you know. They can do stuff like that too. But then I've got these. Now these specifically, when I'm looking at this, I've got a slight upward angle on these. So here's the bottom. And so this slight upward angle is supposed to look like, you know, the earth heaved up, you know, like tectonic movement and stuff like that. So I want to continue this here. So if this is on the, you know, the same plane as that, then these need to kind of go in this direction. So that's what we're doing. This, I don't have to do too much on this side because I've got this other piece. But there you go. So now that kind of orients everything. Now I can kind of get down to trying to get this stuff cut. So when I'm doing this part, when I'm cutting these, I'm cutting with the idea that I want to see where this fissure is. It's right there. I want to cut with the idea that I'm going to come in with a rock and stuff like that. So I don't want it to, you know, make anything too deep where I can't get texture to it. Later on I can do that, but initially I don't want to cut like this big thing where I can't get any texture in there, you know, without destroying stuff. So I do want to take that stuff off and give it a face. Gotta be careful with your fingers, obviously. Don't want to lose none. Okay, let's get some texture on there. And I'll start. I haven't used him yet. This guy's great. I like this guy. It's really, really nice, heavy texture. Haven't done much to the top. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get the top. I'll get there. Okay, and then my first steel brush is always the red one. Doesn't have to be, just always seems to be. That can come out of there. Now, what I may do, because what I'm doing here is I'm having this like this, like that. And then this is going like that. So I need to kind of get some stuff lined up here. Make this a Fisher number one, you know, so that's good because it's going in the right direction. But I think I need to kind of get this going too, like a general. There we go. And yeah, and then I'll follow that line for our direction of cuts, because these all want semi together. So now that that's determined, I am going to put some texture on this, so it looks like the inside of a crevice. There we go. And then my brass brush. I need to take care of this top. I was just holding off for whatever reason, but I think this has got a slight upslope, so I'm going to kind of continue that and kind of try and give it that upward. That looks much better. Okay, now we can texture that a lot better. Let's go back and get that rock, like that guy. Okay, now this needs to kind of do this. That's going to come right up to this, so I want to kind of make that fall away. Okay. Brass. And this is the final one for everything. Okay, so now we're back to pencil. I want a pencil. And I'm just picking out, you know, stones, fissures, all those cracks that give it all that nice shadow. I want to find those and bring them out with my pencil. You're not trying to do a stone wall, you're trying to continue fissures through the rock. And sometimes those go in different directions, but they're not, you know, like if you were doing a brick wall, they'd be offset some, you know, so that's part of it. So don't get into a pattern, you know, where you try to offset things. Just make sure you think, hey, it's one rock that's just basically, think of it, it solidified, and then over eons it cracked. So it's one thing. I'm gonna have that one come out of there. Give me a big overhang from that rock above. That looks great. And, you know, this direction thing, you know, where they're going off in a certain direction really helps, you know, remind you of a rock formation. At least I had a chance to see some of that growing up, and it was a lot of fun. We lived in an apartment, so for 4-H, we couldn't have a pet or anything like that, so we did geology. So I don't know about rocks because I never studied it or anything like that, but I enjoyed going on the museum trips in Seattle, the Burke Museum, and then going on, you know, short field trips. I only went on a couple, but it was just great. You know, it was geology, and so I did get a chance to see different rock formations and things like that, and it was a lot of fun, especially because we got to go to the county fair, and because we didn't have animals and there was no rock competition for a bunch of geology kids, what we did was we worked with the local radio stations, and so we got to do radio updates. We would call in on a telephone during the fair, and of course we were, you know, 11, 12 years old at the time, so this was very, very thrilling. And so we would call the radio stations, and of course the radio station you got chosen for was like a big deal, because that's you were there for the whole fair, doing your reporter or your little segment. And so everybody at the time wanted KISW or KYYX or something like that, the old stations in Seattle. And so yeah, KZOK was another one. So yeah, we did that, and it was a lot of fun because as young 11, 12-year-olds, you know, we got to run around the fair and interview people and try to talk to girls and look official, and it was just wonderful. It was a lot of fun. So if you don't have 4-H, or if you say, gosh, we can't have an animal, but you know, we've got 4-H around us, I think it's a great organization. And well, I don't know about now. It's been years. I should watch what I say. Things have changed so many things. But I would say that it was a great opportunity to, have some communal events, learn about something that you don't necessarily maybe learn enough of in school, but in an outside of school environment. Gosh, it was wonderful, because it was fun. It was at night. You did it with your friends. And you made new friends, and then you got to go to events, and we didn't compete, as I said, but being part of it was just an awful lot of fun. Okay, so you see what I'm doing here? As I'm going through and I'm defining these cuts with the pencil, I'm also finding little, I just lost that one. I'm defining little areas further, both with the scalpel and the tweezers, trying to kind of make it look, like a rock face. This, I think, needs to come out of there. And, spend as much time as you want on this. You're going to have to figure out, when it's time to stop for you. I like doing this stuff and not exactly knowing how it's going to come out the other side. I mean, I don't want to mess it up. That's happened plenty of times. But you learn something every time. It's like, oh, that's where I went too far. Or that's where, a phrase I like to use is I overbaked it. It was looking good, but then I just went too far. And that kind of ruined it. And I'm just like, gosh, darn it. But that's how you learn this stuff. So, embrace that experience. It's not a negative. It's just, gosh dang it. I didn't want to go that far, and I did. The good news is a lot of these materials are not all that expensive, especially this foam stuff. And you can just do so much with it. I did, on this turnaround, I did carve this, and I sometimes worry that other people don't have the tools that I have, because I've got a downdraft table, I've got a Fordham, which is a larger rotary tool than your classic home moto tools, and I prefer that because it's a slower rotation. So I have used my moto tool on this, but it's very specifically what I can do. Doing this would take a long time, and you have the possibility, because it doesn't go quite as slow and it's a smaller bit, you can melt this into your bit, and then you just ruin your bit. Well, it doesn't maybe ruin it, but it makes it a heck of a thing you got to clean out. With the Fordham, I can go slowly on this and I can carve it. But again, my worry is that, look, who can afford that? Well, this I'm feeling a little bit better about, because I am carving this, and this is something that everybody can do on their own without a tool. This is the kind of work that you can get out of this to make your rocks, to make your rock formations and things like that. And so that's really nice, I think. I mean, I feel a little bit better about it, because I feel like, this is not, it's not based on the tool, it's based on how you work on it. Because this, yeah, I got to figure out what I'm going to carve, but man, the tool does such an amazing job. I'm like, I'm using it. So anyway, that was a tangent. Now I'm very happy with this. Now this is going to be, not necessarily a walk in the park. I need to match now this with this, and I don't necessarily want to do anything on that surface and that surface. So this is going to be part of the fissure. There's going to be a fissure between them, which is great because it goes with the red. But yeah, that's going to be a fun one. So I'm going to clean up a little bit, and then we're going to come in and do the last rock. And I think then we'll be ready to put some burnt umber and black on all those rock surfaces. And that's going to give you a big difference. And I haven't even done some of the, you know, where I'm pressing this stuff in. I haven't even done that yet because I want to wait till I get this one done, and then we'll do that together. So, okay. I think we're going here. I got these two guys taped down now, so they're gonna stay stable, and I just got to do this piece. And I don't really need to do this piece, but I thought this would be too thin, and I wanted the height, so just, you know, working with what I had. And I'm avoiding, as best I can, gluing until I've got stuff done, because, you know, when you try to carve through glue or stuff like that, you know, even the glue that I use to put this on the substrate, it makes it very difficult to hide the glue, number one. And you get a straight line, and you can't, like, you know, here we were able to work through, basically almost negating that straight line going through here by changing the direction of how the fissures go through the rock, which is what I wanted to do. But that's because there was no glue in there. The glue is a completely different consistency, and so it doesn't react like this. It's, you know, so anyway, that's why I'm not gluing this together and then carving it. Once it's carved, I can glue everything down. I mean, there's other stuff I'm going to do before that, but then I can glue everything down. I got no problems with it. Okay, so pardon me. I am going to get my cuts done on here in similar fashion. So just kind of laying the groundwork. And I don't want to do that, remember, so that's the hard part. And then I've got fissures that I need to connect here. And they're angled. So I can have a couple more. There's these. Make that one a real thick one. Okay, so I'm going to soften this because this is the fissure side. Okay, let's see how that looks. That's not bad at all. I think that's a fine looking rock. Okay, let's get to it. Haven't used this guy much. We start with the red. Remember, this is the Fisher side, so I gotta do the inside of this, because that's a big fissure between these two rocks. This is the flat outside on the bottom, so that makes it nice for support. Go brass. And steel. Okay, so now already I can see there's this little guy right here. I gotta get rid of that. Create a shelf. Okay. That's good, that's gone. Okay, pencil. So staticky. Telling you. Okay, now I need to get in here, get that out. Where's this? Okay. Now I'm just going to kind of refine this. This one's really sticking out. I think I need to get that guy in there. Whoops. I like living in these big areas where I can put sand later, or other rocks, or, you know, could be plant life. This would definitely support some greenery coming out of it. So I'm going to kind of leave that so I can put some there. And I like that because that'll all be painted black, yet these will, you know, be sticking out as, you know, rock, little crevices and things like that. So, looks pretty good. I need to do something else here. That is a sheer face right here because it's so low. So that face right there, I got to cut down. I got to have something else going on there. Actually, we're going this way. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I need to open this up a little bit. Okay. All right. I think that fits a bit better that way. Yeah, maybe even cut you down a little more. I like that. That looks good. Okay, what's going on out here? I hear a lot of... Okay, we're back. I had to take a break because the neighborhood deer just had a fawn. So, just wanted to make sure everything was good. So here we are. This is what it's looking like. And now that I have these done, I need to kind of figure out what I'm going to do with these flat areas. I kind of need to make them more to a grade. This is fine. This is great. And their position is great, but I need to take these down a little bit. You know, I don't want them, you know, it's not tarmac. You know, I don't want these dead flat. So I'm going to mark these where they're going to be. And then I'll mark this. And then I need to take that back over with the Fordham and, you know, make the, I'm sure I'll bring this down, which will make this more prominent, which is great. This I'll probably contour down because I've got this beautiful root that I found in the yard that I need to treat first. I need to put it in the oven and I'm going to bake it, and I might even have a little bit more stuff to get off of it here. But I need to get this, you know, completely dry. It's probably it is too long in its current form, so if I fracture it right there, I think I'll be all right because this is a great great look in here. And there's also maybe a couple other things I'll do to it. Stuff out there in the desert and stuff like that can get a little bit sand blown. And so I'm going to do that by taking a very high grit and then do a little bit of sanding and take some of that off. And then I'll have another piece here and we'll decide if we do anything with that. That's just a wonderful piece too. And it's already fractured here, so it's not going to really make a big difference. But that's even got a little bit of burn to it. So anyway, I think we got a whole bunch of fun stuff coming up. Okay. Okay, so I don't want to just, take this to that. I want to preserve this, but I want a general, coming up right up to the edge, just a little drop there, and then this doesn't have to just stay flat. It can like pair off this way, whatever. But I don't want to touch where that is because, and I don't want to go too far down, maybe this side, but I'm going to have rock down there. And if I go straight down, like on this one, to take off a lot of this, I'm going to be putting rock in the road. So I've got to have something that's going to keep the rock here, not fall on the road, because all of this is going to have rock fall below it. And so that's what I have to plan on. So I just found a place that needs a little bit of texture. That happens from modifying them. Okay. That too. Looked a little too clean. Okay. Okay, heat gun, and we're done with that.